Okay, let's have a look. A real easy way to make your lighting look good. This scene essentially right now is being lit by um, nothing other than an HDRI. I have lights in the scene, but I've turned them off for this example. So we have an HDR background. Hit 8 on the keyboard, and it will open up your environment effects, and it's sitting in here. So you can go in and add, some sort of image. Now, what people reach for is bitmap. Don't. Okay. Easiest way to do this isn't through here, but to go to your material editor. Now I already have this in here, but I'll just repo this so that you see it. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to maps and OSL, and we're going to go environment, and we're going to go to the HDRI environment. That's going to open up, and it may not, but in your 3ds Max install folder, there is a maps folder. Inside of that, there's an HDRI folder, and I guess another HDRI folder or something. I'm not quite sure. Oh, it's just the HDRI. And so inside of that HDRI folder, you're going to find um, a whole bunch of images that you can start with. The one I'm currently using right now is old Bus Depot, but I'll change this out to outdoor theater, for instance, and you'll see this change. So with that selected, I'm going to take the output and I'm going to drop it onto the environment map. So I'm just going to drop it in there, and we're going to say OK. And now you can see the background has changed. I've just moved my materials editor over the side here. You can see that it has changed and it has loaded up this background. OK. Now, if you notice as I move around, the ground looks like it's not attached, and I'll just get rid of the safe frames there. You can see it's not attached to the ground by the looks of it. And that's because we can set the ground. So if we take a look at our HDRI node, we actually have a couple things we can do. Let's get rid of that so you can see it a bit better. And let's make it narrower so you can see it even better. So we can use ground projection. And if we turn on ground projection, you can see it kind of warps the image and tries to bring the ground, and there's the ground height, kind of up to it. Now, again, it doesn't look great, but just when you're looking at items, if you look at it closely enough with the right sort of angles, it doesn't look too bad. And you can crank that tripod height as high as you want. Higher it up it goes, the sort of the more it scales the ground up, and it starts making your objects look smaller. But at least when you're doing these demos and whatnot, they look pretty good, and they render really nice because of this lighting on here. Now, it may not be the direction you want. You could change the rotation of the image by just rotating the image in the HDRI. So you can get this going around, and you can check it out what it's going to look like in any angle. If I go ahead and choose something else, I think a small hanger might be kind of cool. I think it's got a strong light source on one side, and you can see that it really changes the lighting as it goes around the object. So that's kind of cool to be able to get that look and feel to it and clamp it down. Now you can actually play with the exposure. So if it's too bright or too dark, you can play with the exposure right here, contrast, and you can offset for the viewport too. So that's just the viewport setting. If you render it, it's going to look like this. So you can change the viewport separately, or it's a multiplier to the exposure is what it is. You can also blur the background. So if you turn that on, you'll see the background blurring, and you can turn up the samples. I find really it doesn't get a whole lot better, at least not on my video card. Maybe on yours it might. And you can certainly increase or decrease it, and it'll blur it out for you, so it's not as in your face. Let it sit for a minute. It usually updates pretty good. I'm just going to change it on to high quality, see if it looks better. I have some custom settings because I've got a pretty old system here. Looks pretty good. So back to my user define, same thing. You can, let's see, also override and use a custom background. So if you don't want the background there, but you want the lighting, all you got to do is say use custom background, and you'll notice that the objects are still lit, and they're still lit by the HDRI, but the background now is just set to black. or you could throw in some other map, or you could, just go to sort of a gray tone again. And I'll work that way sometimes because it gets really, just overwhelming seeing this background all the time. But, that looks really good now. I'm getting this really nice looking rendered image with just nothing but just simply an HDRI map, which helps a lot. Now, the next thing you want to do is if you look at my scene, and I'll just go wireframe, you'll notice I have a plane in the scene. This plane is just a plane, nothing other than a plane. And it's just sitting underneath my objects. So there, it's sitting on it. And if you notice, it isn't rendering. So let me turn the background back on, but so you can actually see that it's not rendering that. It looks like it's kind of invisible, but you do notice that it's actually receiving shadows. So under materials, general, match shadow, and we just create a match shadow material. And what a match shadow material does allows you to be able to have objects um, receive shadows and take on atmosphere and whatnot, but not actually render themselves. So shadows will render onto them. So it's a great way of being able to render and have shadows applied, and they'll render. They'll create an alpha, and so when you're rendering them, there'll be an alpha channel for them. However, there won't be any object there, so you can use it for compositing purposes and composite it over other backgrounds and whatnot, which is an excellent solution for being able to put in post whatever sort of backgrounds you're looking for, or in this case, if you just render against it, you've got that background in there. But there you go. That's how you add in your own backgrounds and be able to control them really easily and make them look fantastic.